Good evening. This is a call to order of the Bridgeport Board of Education regular meeting. Today's date is Monday, March 27, 2023. The time now is 6:30 p.m. So we'll start off, that's call order. We're going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is roll call. Our secretary, Mr. Lombard, is not here, so I will take it. Bobby Brown.
Here.
Joseph Sokolovic.
Present.
Michael Macarone. Albert Benahan.
Present, Madam Vice Chair.
Akeisha Casimir.
Present.
And Joseph Lombard. Okay. Sybil Allen. Sure I didn't miss any. Nope, there's 8 of us. There we go. So that's the roll call. The next item we're going to move on to the agenda is student representative reports. If there are any students online, please state your name, the school you attend, and report. At this time, I don't see any student representative online. If students do come on, we'll allocate time for them to present their report. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have public comment. We currently have 2 speakers that have signed up. So for each speaker, you will have 2 minutes, and I will honor that 2 minutes. So please, if you get signaled, the time is up, wrap up your final comment. Our first speaker is Ms. Dasha Spell.
Good evening. My name is Dasha Spell. I am a parent here in the Bridgeport Public School System. Tonight, I have several concerns. However, I'm going to talk about something positive instead of negative this time around. I know that currently we're focusing on the budget and finances within the school district. So I wanted to put out that every year SAMHSA has grants, especially for trauma, mental health, school-based resources. Now, I do understand that the Board of Education has 1 grant writer versus the City of Bridgeport that has 3 grant writers, an assistant director grant writer, and a director grant writer. Yes, I'm throwing shade at the City of Bridgeport right now because they don't support us. With that in mind, what I am suggesting is, and Superintendent Perrin, I would like to talk about is the possibility of looking at some of these community college as well as universities and regular 4-year colleges that have grant writing programs to see if we can get some interns to actually come into the city and help with applying for some of these financial grants that are worth millions of dollars. Because obviously we have to invest in ourselves because there are certain people in this community that aren't or feel that our kids aren't worth investing in. Secondly, in regards to, this is actually more of an issue in my district, and I appreciate Director Pilas in regards to his assistance, but I do have an issue in regards to how certain situations are being handled when it goes to facilities, because we're talking about sports, we're talking about school buildings, we're talking about students and bullying. Now, there have been a couple of situations within my district that involve Bassick, Curiel, and classical studies. All 3 are in the 132nd district. And there have been situations where decisions have been made, and I don't think that it has come across facilities' desks as a conversation. And I think that it's a disservice to our kids when we sit here and as adults we make decisions, but they impact the kids on a whole different level. And as social emotional, but as well as we're trying to teach our kids, you start something, you finish it. And it's not fair to our students, student athletes, our community, that our kids' light gets dimmed when it comes to what they're trying to accomplish. Is that my 2 minutes? Because you know I can go more. Almost?
It didn't buzz.
It didn't buzz? Okay, so I can keep going?
You can finish your last comment.
My last comment? Okay, so I also want to say in regards to the candidates that are actually sitting behind me in the audience that went for this Board of Education position, congratulations for you making it this far. Now, with that in mind, I want you to get used to my face, because you will be seeing me here a lot, and I do have a lot of input because I've been around this particular realm for a very long time. When you come into this position, please remember that these are your kids. So the decisions that you make are for your kids. And with that, I'll walk away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. The next speaker we have is Ms. Gladys Walker-Jones.
Please protect our babies, the ones who teeter around our knees and the ones who tower over us in height and size. There's been way too much loss. Alan Wallach, a servant leader, 3 children, 3 adults, and a 28-year-old female shooter in a private Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee today. Lives, innocence, careers, health, courage, zeal, lost here in Bridgeport. My heart is heavy. I mourn with the many experiencing tangible and intangible loss. Tonight, you all have an opportunity before you. The opportunity to add to this Board of Ed a champion for all of our scholars. One who is going to insist the superintendent and staff look out for the safety of each and every one of our scholars. One who does not have a track record of preferring adults over the needs and rights of scholars. One who is compassionate. It goes way beyond advocating for dollars that tend to benefit far more the adults than the clients we are called to serve. Our scholars are dealing with major gaps in learning and aspirations, yet we had an underqualified superintendent who was able to secure the bag along with contractors you were not privy to. It is our hope that we will not suffer another loss as a result of appointing an unprepared person to finish out the 8-month term vacated by Erica Castillo prior to her formal resignation by way of her lack of attendance and attention. Joanne Kennedy will be here and prepared to tackle the time-sensitive priorities along with you all from the lens of scholars and families first. Joanne Kennedy understands the urgency. She knows that this is not a trial run, not a dress rehearsal. And as for the remaining candidates who indicated during their open interview process their intent to run for a BOE seat in November, I encourage you to show up regularly and learn the full scope and responsibilities of being a strong Board of Ed member. I also encourage you to lock arms with other organizations such as the Greater Bridgeport NAACP, of which I am the education chair. The Working Families Party, Generation Now Votes, Ed Goins Black Democratic Club, Faith Now, PT Partners, Make the Road Connecticut, faith-based organizations, because it's our time to ensure that we have a mayor, a Board of Ed, and a city council that works for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker-Jones. And that concludes public comment. I want to acknowledge in person Board Member Ms. Casimir and Board Member Mr. Benahan. The next item on the agenda is approval of regular meeting minutes.
Excuse me. There are 2 student representatives that have come in.
Okay, please state your name. We're going to actually hold on the approval of minutes and go back to the student representative reports. So please state your name for the record, the high school you attend, and your report. We'll
Thank
start
you
with
so
Erica.
much. Good evening, Board of Education members, and thank you for the time to share an update. My name is Erica Pinto, and I'm here to represent aquaculture as a Central High School student. In addition to our normal school business this week, we had a visit from the State Department of Education to check our compliance with state rules and regulations regarding the operation of our ASDE Center. The initial reports were very positive, thanks in large part to the participation of all our stakeholders and communities. Thank you to all of them and you for continually supporting our program. This past Friday, some Aqua seniors competed against other regional high schoolers in the UB Rise event. Grace Kistner finished first, and Jack Murray was also recognized with honorable mention. They are both aquaculture seniors. It was a fun day on the UB campus and a successful one for Aqua and BPS. We appreciate the continued support of the Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to report once more.
Thank you, Ms. Pinto. We'll move to Ms. Julia Estrella Hernandez. Please state your name, although I said it in the high school you attend in your report.
Hi, hello, Board of Education. Ms. Julia Estrella, the student representative for military academy. Thank you for hearing this delay. So just some quick updates. The FAT testing day went well for all cadets who participated. Tomorrow evening is our March PSO meeting with a presentation regarding the day. And lastly, the Aero Department attended a drill competition in New Jersey this past weekend. They received several awards. So the first, second place personal inspection, then second place dual exhibition, and third place athletics, and third place new cadet color guard. And we're very proud of them. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. And the next student we have is Nikki Ann Thomas. Please state your school and your report.
Hello, my name is Nikki Ann Thomas, and I'm from Bassick High School. Bassick is very proud that 98% of our juniors took the SAT on Wednesday, the 22nd. WTH and News 8 completed a segment on our Tango Flight project. Thank you, Mr. Benjan, for coming by. This segment will air on tomorrow at 6 a.m. under What's Right About Schools. Thank you to Ms. Vasquez, Mr. Benjan, and Mr. Torres from Elevate for the PTSO Paint and Dine event last Friday. It was a blast to see everyone try our painting. Bassick's Pride Pack GSA is starting to plan our second annual day of silence events. Bassick, with the other 4 high schools, participated in the famed production of The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical. The students were actors, designers, stage managers, and more. They performed in 2 performances for just under 500 8th grade students and staff, and then in another 2 performances for about 200 community members. Bassick Prom will take place on the evening of May 12th. The Student Council has started selling tickets. Thank you.
Thank you, students, for your report. I do want to point out that in the past, we've had student representatives attend our meetings in person, and you're able to participate in our active business. Even if you decide to stay online tonight or in the future, you can come in person and give your perspective as a student on the actual policies that we're voting on as a board. And so I just wanted to emphasize that, especially now that the sun is out a lot later, safety-wise, it's good to come to these meetings. Thank you both, all 3 of you, for your reports. And now we're going to transition into approval of minutes. The first minutes to approve is from the regular meeting from March 13th, 2023. Do I have any comments, edits? Being none.
No, we didn't have a motion yet. Hasn't been moved or seconded yet.
Would someone like to move and second it?
Make a motion to approve the regular minutes, March 13th, 2023.
I second.
Okay, motion's been moved, second by Mr. Benahan to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 13th, 2023. Is there any discussions, edits, or comments? Seeing that there's none, we'll do a vote. All in favor of approval of the regular board meeting minutes from March 13th, 2023?
Aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it. Any opposed? I didn't think so. Any abstentions? I didn't think so. I was right. The ayes have it. So the minutes from March 13th, 2023 have been approved. The next minutes for approval is the special meeting held on March 15th, 2023.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 15th, 2023 special meeting.
Second.
And so the motion's been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Benahan. Are there any discussions, edits, or comments? Okay, seeing that there's none, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The meetings have been approved for a special meeting, March 15th, 2023. The next item on the agenda is special meeting on March 21st, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting, March 21st, 2023. Second.
The motion's been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Lombard. Any discussion, comments, or edits? Okay. Seeing that there's none, we'll vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The special meeting minutes from March 21st, 23 has been approved. The next item on the agenda is the chairman's report. Ms. Brown is available virtually. Do you have a report, Ms. Brown?
Currently do not have a report at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is committee reports and referrals. The first committee is the Education, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes, we did not have a meeting in the interim. The next meeting is scheduled for April 17th, 2022.
Do we have any referrals to that committee? Okay, not all at one time. Okay, we're going to move on to a report and referrals for the Finance Committee. Mr. Sokolovic?
Again, we did not meet in the interim. We got a date scheduled tentatively for the first Wednesday, but I got to coordinate some things to see if that's even possible because the normal day falls during spring break.
Okay. Any referrals to Finance? Okay, again, not all at one time. Okay, thank you for respecting the rules. We're now going to move on to the Governance Committee.
Yes, governance also did not meet in the interim, but we got a few items on the agenda to get through. The next meeting will be April 19th at Central High School.
Thank you. The next item on the committee report is Health, Safety, and Facilities. Health, Safeties, and Facilities, that's chaired by me, Christine Baptiste Perez. We have not met in the interim. I plan on having a meeting in mid-April after spring break. Any referrals?
Yes, Madam Chair. Sorry, Madam Vice Chair. I know we talked about this, but I wanted to be sure for the record. I will send it to you again, the process of what I asked about security, but I want to be sure for the record that I would like to also send Ms. Perrin the request that I'm like to have Captain Greg Tannick Park and Mr. Santiago, he's one of the league guard, and also Jimmy Masor, so we can speak and talk about situation, what's going on with security. And for the record, any security guard we have in Bridgeport School, they're very welcome. They start saying to them they cannot come to our meetings because our meetings more very high and visible for professional people. And I don't like that. We all equal. We are not perfect, but everyone is welcome, especially when we have the meeting security. All the security at the Bridgeport School, they're very welcome to come. I just want to have that for the record, but I will email you all the details. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Any other referrals to health, safety, and facilities? I'll make a referral since it'll be on the record. Based off of public comment, maybe see what the district is actually exploring in terms of grants that can be applicable towards students' mental health and well-being. Maybe have us look into what's available. The SAMHSA, I think, is what was presented during public comment. I hope I got that right, or I'll reach out to Ms. Spell. But maybe looking at alternatives. So some of our agendas from the monies we received with COVID that's no longer going to be here after next year, we can still continue to support our students with financial sources elsewhere. So I'll make that. And anyone else? Okay. Thank you. The next item for the committee reports is personnel and contracts. That's Ms. Brown.
Good evening, everyone. We will be meeting on tomorrow. We have a few contracts that will need approval and a few items for personnel as well. So we'll be meeting tomorrow, 6:30 on Teams.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Is there any referrals to personnel and contracts? Okay. Seeing that there's none, we'll move on. The next committee report is Mr. Benahan with students and families.
Thank you. We have our meeting on March 23rd, 2023. It was amazing. We run the meeting as the way it's supposed to be. I have to say thank you for the PAC PAC leaders from Johnson School and the PAC Laredo School. They have amazing report how they work together and workshop for the parents. Thank you for Mr. Plana and Dr. Jenke for presenting information about math and reading. You know, it was very important that you guys give information update. You know, we need to be working on that more. But so far, everything was very nice. We have a great dinner and stuff like that. Now our next meeting is gonna be April 20, 2023, Thursday at 6 o'clock in library in Central High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benahan. Do I have any referrals to students and families? Okay, seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the next one. That's teaching and learning. That's chaired by me. Teaching and learning has not met in the interim. Again, I plan on having my committee meetings after spring break, so mid-April. Do I have any referrals for teaching and learning?
Yeah, not exactly a referral, but I would just recommend that we receive the information from the students and families with math and language arts presented, because it's very relevant for teaching and learning. A lot of statistics and standings and so forth.
Okay.
Be helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other referrals for teaching and learning? Okay. Seeing that there's none, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Ms. Perrin.
Good evening, everyone. Pre-K registration continues for school year 23-24. That is available online as well as at pre-K sites throughout the district. Kindergarten registration will begin on Monday, April the 3rd, as well for next school year. Nursing, we are still in the process of collecting data in physical forms for grade 6 and 10 families. The state deadline is April 1st for the submission of these mandated physical forms. So students will not be allowed to return to school if they have not submitted this. Currently, we are at 80%. Currently, we are at 80% of our students in grade 6 and 10 who have met this requirement. We still have the next week to be able to do so. In addition to having the physical forms, they can also provide copies of appointment cards, and that will be accepted as well. We have our math grade 7 and 8. Our math meet will be June 1st for grade 7 and 8 from 9 to 1 at Sacred Heart University. One of the new grant opportunities that we are exploring as a district is called Experience Connecticut. The district received funding from the state of Connecticut's Department of Education to launch Experience Connecticut, which is an outside of school program for 4th graders. 100 4th graders will spend one Saturday a month exploring the state with chaperones from the district. These students will create, quote unquote, a passport of all the places that they visited. And some of the things that we've set up is the Pequot Museum, Mystic Aquarium, Lyman Orchards, and the like. The program is free for all students and parents who want to attend to chaperone as well with their children. So this will be getting started very shortly. Care for Kids update. We have re-engaged Care for Kids as a payment subsidy for our pre-K classes. Parents can inquire about the application process at the Office of Early Childhood. Some of our upcoming events. We have our PAC PTSO roundtable taking place on March the 29th at Harding High School at 6 p.m. The focus is restorative practices. We also have our Bridgeport Public Schools League debate happening on the 31st at the Pequot Library in Westport. We have parent orientation for Experience Connecticut, which will be held on March 27th from 6 to 7 at Central High School. And then we have the save the date for our high school graduation day, which will be on June 12th, 2023. I want to send kudos to a student from the Aerospace and Hydrospace and Physical Science High School in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They were chosen from 26,000 participants from across the United States to participate in the MathCon, which is a prestigious academic competition in Chicago, which will take place later this year. So this is, there was also among the 628 finalists, Zachary Allen, an 11th grader from Aerospace and Hydrospace, was chosen as well. So congratulations to them. An update on our PSAT for grades 8, 9, and 10. Please note that right now we have approximately 99% of our 8th grade students who have tested successfully. And for our grade 11, we are up to 84% and still have the remainder of the week to get that done. So we're doing nicely with that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Perrin. I don't think this one works. You can hear me?
Yeah, right now.
Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent's report? I have one. The Experience Connecticut, that's all offered to all 4th graders in the district?
100.
Okay, so 100 4th graders. Is it on a first come, first served basis?
Yes.
Okay, but it's 100 students, and if every parent and guardian, so it's up to 200, parent and child?
Yes.
Oh.
Or it can be up to 300 because if they have 2 parents, because it's not cut off to just 1 parent.
Oh.
It can be 2 parents as well.
Oh, okay. Yep. Very nice. And this, what's the duration for Experience Connecticut?
Well, it was supposed to start actually last school year, but because there was a delay in the funding, it's going to start this May and go through next May.
Oh, nice. No, I'm asking because that's something that maybe we could have a presentation in teaching and learning, what the students got from it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions. Mr. Benahan?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Perrin. One question, one comment. For the first comment, thank you for being on the teaching event in the union. It was very, very nice. We have a good fun. And finally, I meet your mother, very beautiful lady. And my second, question is, when it's gonna be, we're gonna start the process to talk about the basic high school and BMA?
So one of the things that we have been waiting for is communication from the city. Ms. Brown and I had met with them probably about 2.5 weeks ago because right now we don't have any other information to share. We had shared all that at the last forum. So we're following up on that request because we have not heard anything in regards to next steps for that piece to be able to share with the community.
So in other words, we had to waiting for the city to see what's gonna be the process, what we're gonna do.
So no, we're waiting for the city to get information because one of the things that we had talked about doing is another form. But the information that we need comes from help with the city because we don't have anything else. So we're waiting from that, from that for right now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Perrin.
You're welcome.
No more questions.
Any additional questions or comments?
Before we move on to the next agenda item, I have a point of personal privilege. As we all know, we just lost a longtime member of our staff, Mr. Alan Wallach. I remember Mr. Wallach as a very kind man. He was very kind to my son when he was advocating for, before I was on the board, he was advocating for a playground. And he made sure to update my son all the time that he saw him at a meeting. And then later when I was on the board and it was approved, talked to him, told him he did a good job. So I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Alan Wallach, please.
Oh, we'll, that's completely fine with me. We'll have a moment of silence. Okay, and then
Thank you.
any other questions or comments for the superintendent, from the superintendent's report? I have one more, sorry. Because Mr. Benahan did bring up Bassick High School. Some of the publicly available documents from meetings as early as 2017 regarding the new Bassick High School are no longer available online. Can we look into having IT have some of the original meeting minutes that were approved by the board available to the public for their review? Okay. Seeing that there's no more questions from the superintendent's report, we're going to move on to unfinished old business. The first item up for old unfinished business is a second read and possible approval of policy bylaw 9130, construction and posting of agenda.
So you want me to take that?
Mr. Sokolovic, since this came out of your committee, you can present it first or have the first opportunity to discuss.
Right, this is the second iteration. It was all the changes were captured that were made in the first read on this item. So everybody takes a moment to glance at it, see if there's something that's captured or something that's different. And if there's nothing, we could just make a motion and go on to discussion, if any further changes, and then maybe approve it. Does anybody see any?
Making a motion.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the second read for immediate implementation of policy 9130 as presented this evening.
Second.
Okay. So the motion's been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Benahan. And I'll open up the floor now for a discussion, debate. Any discussion, debate regarding the content? Okay.
Mrs. Calvin,
Oh, Mr. Lombard?
were any changes made beyond what were suggested at our last?
No, everything seems to have been captured, and we took care of that sentence that got, the last sentence that was struck.
Okay, if any board member needs a copy, a physical copy of it, we could pass it down, just so you can review. Okay. Any discussion, debate, comments? Seeing that there's none, we can vote on this. So we're going to vote right now for the approval and immediate implementation of policy bylaw 9130, construction and posting of agenda items. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion passes unanimously. The next item for old business is second read and possible approval of bylaw 9170, quorum and voting procedures. Again, this was introduced in Mr. Sokolovic committee, so you can introduce it first.
Yes, this is similar to the last one, with just a lot less changes, just one red line in row A. So I'll just make the motion to approve 9170 as presented this evening and in the first read.
Second.
So the motion's been moved for approval of policy bylaw 9170, quorum and voting procedures by Mr. Sokolovic and second by Mr. Benahan. Any discussion? I do have one comment. Is this for immediate implementation?
Yes.
Be an amendment to the main motion? Because that was not part of what you said.
Well, actually, it's really, it's already written in the policy, but we could add it too. Because bylaws are immediate and policy changes are, if it deals with children or the schools, it starts in the next school year. You could add it either. I just added it redundantly, but I can make a motion to amend to include immediate implementation.
Second.
The motion's been, the amendment to the main motion for immediate implementation has been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Ms. Casimir. Any discussion regarding the immediate implementation amendment? Seeing that there's none, we're first going to vote on the amendment to the main motion, which is immediate implementation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The amendment to the main motion passes. Now the main motion on the floor is a motion to approve policy bylaw 9170, quorum and voting procedures implemented immediately. Any additional discussion? Seeing that there's none, we'll vote on this item. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. This motion too passes unanimously. The next item for old business is second read and possible approval of policy bylaw 9190, public hearing. Again, Mr. Sokolovic, this was introduced from your committee, so you can introduce it to the public. Thank you.
Motion to approve public hearings 9190 as presented for immediate implementation. There's only been one change to this.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Benahan. Any discussion, debate? Seeing that there's none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing that there's none, the motion passes. We're now going to move into new business. The first item for new business is discussion and appointment of candidate to fill the vacant Board of Education seat left by Erica Castillo. This item may qualify for executive session. Will any board member like to move into executive session? Seeing that there's no motion for executive session, is there a motion for a candidate?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Mr. Robert Traber to be our newest board member.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve Mr. Robert Traber to fill the vacant Board of Education seat. And that was moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Lombard. Any discussion? Well, I have a comment for discussion. First, I want to thank all the candidates for applying and their interest in the role. It's very hopeful and inspiring to me that there's a lot of people that care and want to use their expertise to improve the school district. And I wish you guys would have ran against us in our original primary because there was a talented and passionate bunch of individuals who are here and committed to our meetings more so than others.
That's right.
And it's not an easy decision, but this is just an 8-month seat. And I highly encourage those who are interested that there will be an election. And this is just a temporary position. That's all I have to say. I may be wrong on my math, but this is temporary, so thank you. Is there an interest to make a motion for a call for roll call?
Yeah, make a call for a roll call.
Okay, so this is going to be roll call vote. Any more discussion? Comments? Mr. Benahan?
Comment, Madam Vice Chair, thank you. I agree with what you said. And like you said, this is a position for 8 months. And like you said, we got a big election that's coming. But I have to say that thank you for a lot of people that come and they care, the interest to be working with us in Bridgeport School. But don't give up, just keep, fighting. It's a big election. And I know you can do it. I know you can do it. And then we're going to keep forward because I know who care about Bridgeport School, and about our students and staff and parents. I just wanted that for the record. No more comments, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? All right, I don't see none. All right, so we're going, sorry, I cut myself off. Okay, we're going to go around, roll call vote for approval of Robert Traber for the vacant Board of Education seat.
Okay. Ms. Baptiste Perez?
No.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Macaron?
Abstain.
Abstain. Is Bobby Brown still on?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Lombard, yes. And then Mr. Macaron? You're staying, I'm sorry, didn't no one passed? All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain, motion carries. What?
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, but there is a bylaw that's particularly troubling. I can't recall which one it
Mr.
is.
Sokolovic, you have the point of
Yes,
point of order.
Point of order. I don't have it prepared because I was expecting at least 5 for the board. It requires a majority of the board to.
It requires a supermajority,
No,
two-thirds?
it requires 5.
Does it require a 2/3 vote or majority?
5.
It requires
Of the total board, majority of the total board, not the total presence.
of the total board.
Oh, so you would need 5. So you would need 5.
Right.
Right, so that doesn't pass then, in that case. So.
This item may qualify for executive session.
Or also I can make a motion to reconsider the vote and we could vote again. Because I think at this point, this discussion needs to be made out in the public. So the resulting of this, if we don't get 5 votes for one candidate, it's going to go to Mayor Ganem.
Second.
You have to make the motion.
So
He did, right?
I made the motion to reconsider.
Motion, okay. So there's a motion to reconsider by Mr. Sokolovic. It was second by Mr. Lombard. And so we're going to vote again.
We'll vote on the motion.
Well,
Again.
seeing as there is no other candidate that has been proposed, I don't know why we've got no votes on a candidate that has a clear majority and had a clear majority. Almost a unanimous decision. But for some things that happened between the meeting and now.
I'll speak to that too. I'd like to speak to that too. I don't understand why no one else was nominated if the person that was nominated wasn't wanted. I don't understand the logic behind this. If there was someone else that someone wanted or didn't want the person that was nominated, unless in fact they wanted none of the candidates. So if they wanted none of the candidates, that would make sense. So I'm a little flustered by what just happened, so. So do we have to vote on whether or not we're going to vote again? Because that's been motioned and seconded.
We're reconsidering the question now, so we got to think to close it out. We got to vote again or what have you. If somebody wants to raise up another candidate.
Wait.
Yeah.
So we are going to reintroduce the motion, the previous motion that failed. And I'll emphasize again, this item may qualify for executive session. So if that would actually have to fall after this vote.
I would just speak just on this motion that's on the table now. If it does pass that we vote again, I would ask that if someone has another candidate that they are interested in being the board member for the next 8 months, that they nominate them so they can be considered, as opposed to just voting against the only one that was nominated.
Okay. So we're going to vote again for Mr. Traber. I just want to make sure I understand.
Do we have to vote on whether or not we're going to take a vote again?
Yeah, we have
The motion to reconsider is on the floor.
the motion to reconsider is on the floor.
The vote could be to reconsider.
And yeah, so it would be to reconsider our previous vote.
Right.
So
So
I
we'll do
think
roll
we
call
could
again?
Yeah, we can do roll call.
All right, we'll do roll call again. This is whether or not we want to reconsider, and if not, we know it goes out of our hands. So Ms. Baptiste Perez?
No,
Okay.
because I think there's another candidate, and depending on the outcome of the vote, I will just move the other candidate.
Okay. Mr. Skalovic?
Yes.
Mr. Benahan?
Yes.
Casimir?
Ms. Casimir, if you need additional time to consider, you can pass and it'll go on to the next board member and come back to you towards the end.
Okay. Mr. Macaron?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lombard, yes. Ms. Casimir? No. No, okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, 2 no. We'll reconsider.
Okay, so now we reconsider. So we've agreed that the motion to reconsider has been approved by the board. So we're going to now vote on approval of Mr. Traber as Mr. Traber to fill the vacant Board of Education seat. So this is going to be the current vote in front of us. All right, because that was the previous vote was to actually reconsidered pass. So now we'll vote on Mr. Traber's candidacy.
Okay.
Roll call vote?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Baptiste Perez?
No.
Holovic?
Yes.
Mr. Benahan?
Yes.
Ms. Casimir? No. Mr. Macaron?
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Lombard, yes, 5 yes.
Okay. The motion carries. Mr. Trabar, congratulations. Welcome to the Board of Education. You will now fill the seat left by Ms. Erica Castillo.
Can we get a 5-minute recess? And then we can,
Swear him in.
Yeah, motion for a 5-minute recess?
And there's a motion for a 5-minute recess. It's been seconded by Mr. Benahan. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll have a 5-minute recess.
Ms. Perrin, I'm sorry.
We're returning from our 5-minute recess. Again, I want to welcome Mr. Traber to the Board of Education. Congratulations.
Thank you. May I have a point of personal privilege here?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to thank the board for voting for me. I did really want to participate and help this board in any way that I can and look forward to working with all of you. As I said last week, I think this board's moving in a very positive direction, and it's exciting to me to see that happening. I also agree with you in your comment about I was very impressed last week with all the candidates. I've known Ms. Kennedy for years and want to congratulate her on her applying too, and look forward to working with her as I have in the past. But I had the pleasure of talking with a couple of the younger ones outside, and it was just exciting to see younger people wanting to get involved. So as a retired old man, and I know there was one other older woman there who I went up to and spoke with after the meeting because she was very impressive too. I think it's just very exciting for Bridgeport. So thank you for your support, and I will do whatever I can to help earn your trust and support. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to the next item for new business, which is discussion and possible action to suspension of bylaws 9300 and 9310 for the purpose of immediate implementation of bylaws 9200, 9220, and 9230. So I believe this came in from your committee, Mr. Sokolovic. Would you like to introduce it?
Yes, the purpose of this is bypassing these things so we don't have to have a first read and a second read. And the reason I'm bringing it up for these particular bylaws because the only change is in gendered language. So I'll make a motion to suspend bylaws 9300 and 9310 for the purpose of immediate implementation of bylaws 9200, 9220, and 9230.
Second.
Okay, so the main motion has been introduced by Mr. Sokolovic. It was seconded by Mr. Lombard, who is now virtual. And now the floor is open to debate or discussion. Okay, seeing that there's no debate or discussion, we'll now vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Motion passes. Okay. The next item for new business is discussion and possible approval of policy 9200 officers. Again, this was introduced by Mr. Sokolovic.
I make a motion to approve the changes in officers 9200. As I stated before, we have just gendered language changes are the only changes in this policy.
So move.
Second.
Okay, so the motion was moved by Mr. Benahan and second by Mr. Lombard. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll now vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Abstention, the motion carries. We're going to now move on to new business item D, which is discussion and possible approval of policy 9220, official duties, vice chairman. Again, it was introduced by Mr. Sokolovic, so I'll let him introduce the item. And if anyone feels compelled to make a motion, they can feel free.
Motion to approve as presented official duties of the vice chairman 9220. Again, the only changes made were to gendered language.
Point of order, your mic was off.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Make a motion to approve the official duties of vice chairman, policy bylaw number 9220. The only, for immediate implementation, the only changes made were to gendered language.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
The motion was moved by Mr. Benahan. It was seconded by Mr. Traber. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll now vote on the item, our main motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention. Motion carries. We're moving on to new business item E, discussion and possible approval of policy 9230, official duties secretary. Again, this came from Mr. Sokolovic's committee. Would you like to introduce it, Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes, motion to approve official duties, secretary, policy 9230, bylaw 9230 for immediate implementation. Again, the only change is a gendered language.
So move.
Second.
The motion's been moved by Mr. Benahan, second by Mr. Traber. Any discussion? I'd like to make a comment. I agree with the edit upon a majority vote of the board. I think this reflects the reality of the board. So I think that was a good edit. Any other points for discussion or debate? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve policy 9230, official duties secretary. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention. The motion carries. All right. We're going to move on to item F for new business. First read of policy 9210, official duties chairman. Again, this was introduced from Mr. Sokolovic or Mr. Sokolovic's committee. So would you like to introduce?
Yes, this one, unlike the others, has some changes, some that may be material of nature, so I did not put this one up for bypassing the bylaws, so, but I would like to make a motion of waiving the reading of the entire policy at this time and just focus on the changes.
So move.
Second.
There's no motion. There is no publication for a vote. It's just first read, 9210, official duty.
Right, technically we're supposed to read through the entire document, making a motion to waive that. So we don't have to, we could sit here and read the whole thing or not, we can go or focus on the changes. And we accept the first one.
I make a motion to only read the changes as a first read.
So there's a motion to just read the changes.
No, second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Casimir. Any discussions? We will now vote to only read the changes for policy for 9210, official duties of chairman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention. So the motion to just read the changes for 9210, official duties chairman, has been approved. Okay, so we will now just look at the changes. I have a point. Is there a copy of 9210? I may have not got one in my bag. Okay. Thank you.
Somebody. Oh, you want to bring it?
All right. So I apologize for my confusion. I may have just turned away from 9210, moving through the agenda items. In accordance with Robert's rules, since I'm facilitating the meeting, I open up the floor first to any board member for discussion or debate before I comment. Okay. As I mentioned, I thought item 12 was a good edit to get rid of the majority of the board. One, the edit removes the chairperson shall cause to be noticed or cancel all of the meetings of the board, and just period. That too is straightforward. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, that upon a majority of board was just a proposed change. The black is all the original, so that just didn't make the cut in committee. Oh wait, no, it was correct. So the chairperson shall, normally would read, the chairperson shall have the authority to invite legal counsel. But the new language is with prior notice to the board, just so the board's aware that the attorney is coming. Seems like a minor change, and that's to address your point. Would you like me to just go down the line to point out any of the other material changes or all the changes basically?
For me, one was addressed. We addressed 12. For me, you can address 9210 subsection 6, and I think that's fine for me.
Okay. Yeah, but just for the record, I'd like to point out that we changed the gendered language 1 through 5. In 6, changed the gendered language, and new language inserted was the chairperson shall distribute to all Board of Education members written legal opinion of board counsel. This way we're all on the same page. That's why that was entered. Gendered change in 7, 8, and 9, and 10, and 11. And we've already discussed 12 and 13.
What was the change in 6?
In 6 would be new language added in the sentence where it says chairperson deems it to be appropriate. There was a whole sentence added. The chairperson will distribute to all Board of Education members the written legal opinion of board counsel. This will prevent a legal opinion being dropped on us 10 minutes before a meeting, and nobody will have time to digest it, that only the board chair had privy to. As you know, this has happened in the past, but I don't anticipate it happening with this particular board chair. But we're not writing policies and bylaws for now. We're writing them for the future and people who follow behind us.
I suppose that's fine. There's just a slight concern regarding costs. Everything doesn't have to be a 5-page, 10-page paper. But if we do ask legal counsel for opinion, point of order, Mr. Benahan.
Apologize.
I think keeping board members informed of legal opinion is definitely key.
Right.
So I see that.
Yeah, to address your question about cost, that did come up in committee, and it says cost is either non-existent or negligible between the different opinions.
So now I have a question. Do we have a flat fee arrangement or a billable hour arrangement with Birchman Moses? So it will have an impact.
Yeah,
I guess
probably negligible. Dr. Baldwin, do you want to?
Certainly, if the board requests a legal opinion through its board chair, the board chair would reach out to maybe Mr. Hugus, the board's attorney, and he would speak with the board chair, and then the board chair would ask that he put his opinion in writing. And so there is obviously billable hours at his rate or an associate's rate. And depending on how long it takes to put the opinion in writing, it could be 1 hour, it could be 15 minutes. And as you say, it could be several hours. So there is a cost. But I think based on history, it's important that we put in writing that we ask for the full board to be informed of the opinion.
No, I agree. I think it's just, do we know if their billable hours is in 6-minute increments?
What?
Most likely. Okay. I mean, is there anything else for discussion? All right, so since this is just the first read, for policy 9210 official duties of chairman, I think this will go move on to the next regular board meeting for possible approval. All right. So the next item we're going to go on for new business is item G, which is a first read of policy 9280 committees. Again, this was introduced in Mr. Sokolovic's committee, so I'll let you introduce it to the public, and then we can discuss.
Once again, I'd like to make a motion to waive the entire reading and just focus on the changes in order to consider the first read.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to waive reading the full policy and just read the changes, did I say that?
Yes.
Okay, was moved by Mr. Benahan, second by Mr. Lombard. Is there any discussion regarding not reading the entire policy, but just reading the changes? Seeing that there's no discussion or debate regarding this item, we're now going to vote to waive reading the full policy and just reading the changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. We're just going to focus on the changes. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, I'll just, in the interest of expediency, I'll just point out the changes. In paragraph 1, we have gender changes only, chairman and chair to chairperson, chairpersons. And then the next change will be D, that's a whole new insertion of a category. It says, any change to committee assignments made to subsequently filing the list to the superintendent shall be approved by the members affected or a majority of the full board. This was added with the intention of preventing a chair from just stripping a member unreasonably of assignments, so that person will have an opportunity to say, no, I do not want to move, and then it will feed into the next line, line 2, which reads, each committee shall have, by a majority of the full board. So that would leave, say if somebody, not that it'll ever happen, sends a mean email or something and gets their committee stripped and the rest of the board don't agree, they'll have a chance to either affirm or deny the chairman's request to cut those committees. And then the next line is, every committee shall have, as near as can be, the same number of members, provided that each member of the board shall serve on at least 2 committees. That change was made keeping in mind that we are a full board. Those of us who weren't appointed or elected, even those appointed are expected to share in the workload equally and not have a disproportionate amount of work fall on certain members, because we were all elected by the same method and or appointed by the same method. And then there's one more change in number 5. The chair shall recognize them instead of may recognize.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Lombard.
So I'm just looking further, because I'm on this committee also, at number 5, where it says board members who are not members of the committee shall not participate, which would include speaking, or vote as a member. So I kind of feel like the way it was written is the chair may, if they want, recognize them to speak. But for us to say the chair shall recognize them to speak, I feel like it contradicts. I didn't notice this in first looking at this. I feel like it contradicts the fact that earlier in number 5, it says they shall not participate. So I want to bring that up for discussion.
Right. May I clarify that, Madam Chair?
I'm going to go around and allow the rest of the board members to give input. And then if None, it goes back to you. So it's not a back and forth dialogue. Ms. Casimir, do you have any comments?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Lombard for pointing that out because I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Mr. Benahan?
No comment this moment. Thank you.
Mr. Traber?
Yes, I have, if I understand item 5, having just read it, that refers to public portions of the meeting. The sentence that you read, Mr. Lombard, refers to executive session. And it says board members who attend are not allowed to vote or participate in executive session.
Well, I'll just, if I could speak, no, I believe the portion, they would definitely not be in executive session, but the final sentence refers to even in the general session of the committee that the chair shall recognize them to speak. You know, in practice, that's what happens. Typically, the chair does recognize, you know, for example, last week when Mr. Benahan was chairing Students and Families, there were a number of board members there that were not, there were more board members there that were not members of the committee maybe than there were that were, and he always recognized everyone. This is saying he must recognize them. And I think that's just where I'm seeing conflict in the current writing of it.
As just to see if I'm understanding it correctly, the first sentence says that there's a very limited, if you're a guest to a committee meeting, there's a limited role to play. The second sentence says if you're a guest, the chair can recognize you to speak in the public sessions only.
I think
that's correct. That's how it is now. But if we change it, it says they must recognize you.
Yes.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes, Mr. Lombard, the first portion, the first part of that paragraph is basically state statute. Nobody that's not on the committee can attend executive session. If we have a personnel committee and they go behind closed doors, I, as a non-member of the personnel committee, may not be able to close behind closed doors. Now, this shall be recognized if we're discussing, should we seek out a new employee or what have you, I would have the right to comment. And the reason being, this has members in the past have been excluded speaking, not in a very recent past, but in probably 4 years back. And what that does is, let's say we don't speak at the committee and somebody decides to shut out a dissenting opinion. Where's that dissenting opinion going to come out? Right here, right now at the regular meeting, and it will not have a chance to be addressed on the committee level to iron it out. As you see, working on this committee here, we usually have about 3 or 4 board members in total in the committee. So we're walking out of this meeting with 4 votes and a lot of the kinks ironed out before we get up here. So it'll behoove us to have a shall rather than a may.
Wait 1 second. I want to open up the floor to Mr. Macaron if he has any comments.
No, no comment right now. Thank you.
Do you have any opinion, Mr. Macaron, regarding the executive session portion of it?
I think, well, I think I'm okay with the executive session portion, but I'd like to hear a little bit more.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
Yes. So just to be clear, I agree with the intent of the proposed change. I just feel there's a grammatical conflict. For example, what I think would clear this for me at least is if it says at the very first line, because it does not specify executive session until the second part of the sentence when it says and shall not participate in executive session. But the first part just simply says they are not a member of, they shall not participate or vote as a member of such committee. So what I'm saying is they may participate or they may speak, but they shall not vote. So I think to say they shall not participate to me means they shall not speak either. They necessarily don't participate. I feel like we have a conflict. That's all I'm pointing out.
Now I will put in my commentary, I see where you're coming from, Mr. Lombard. I think for this particular subsection of 9280 should be fleshed out more in detail on the committee level, just because like I see the confusion with it. I do have a comment though, separate from item number 5, but I want to keep this organized. If there's any other board member regarding commentary to 9280 subsection 5, keep it limited to 9280 subsection 5. Mr. Benahan.
We're talking about that, yes. Yes. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I will talk to you about the, like I said, item number 5, and I will talk to you about my experience. As the chair of the student family, you know, I'm always recognized and I'm very welcome to people coming and speak. I don't like to, if you have a comment, if you had to say something, you know, I welcome either the guests, whoever your parents they come, because they're important for me. But in this part of the reading the executive section, I can tell you my experience when they have, I believe it was personal, when they, let's say they have an interview of staff, they want to come to a program board education, and I'm not be part of the committee, I had to be out of the committee. Why the reason I'm agree that part? Because I'm a board member, and now or later I had to see the staff, whoever's going to be, you know, hiring. I need to speak to them later. Oh, they can come, we can discuss, we can, anything that can happen. So I always, and I really have the experience that I had to be out, and how many minutes or 30 minutes or hour speaking outside, I'm outside waiting for it. So I don't feel as a board member I had to be outside. Of course, I don't have the voice for vote, you know, and not just to listen, but as a board member, I would like to listen what that staff is coming, you know, what they're gonna bring for the board education. So I'm a little concerned about that part. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay. Any comments regarding subsection 5? Mr. Sokolovich?
Yeah, got these birds. Does anybody have any other issues with, through you, Madam Chair, does anybody have any other issues besides that one word change?
Well, I think it's been identified that the shall not participate from Mr. Benahan. He's given an example of that. He's allowed other board members to participate. I can speak from my experience with my committees. I'll allow board members to come and participate, but the vote is only amongst committee members before moving it before the full board. I think this is where a good old comma and maybe additional clarification sentences can come in. So when we're talking about regular committees, and then what happens in the case of executive session. In terms of the notwithstanding, committee chair shall recognize them to speak in portions of the meetings open to the public. Yeah, it's just not clear. I think it could be fleshed out more on the committee level.
Yeah, that's the thing. This thing has been referred to the committee about 2 years ago, and we've got so many other new policies coming up that I would like to make a motion to strike the shall and leave it as original, if that'll clear the whole thing up, because it's not really a major points in the policy. And then I'd leave it as it, because the may was the old language. So if everybody's okay with the old language, it's not something that we need to go back to committee and have a whole other meeting about, and then come back here and argue, discuss and argue about what's the next thing to do and take up board time. So, oh wait, so did anybody
there's
pass the motion?
You'll need to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So your proposed motion is to keep the language as is.
In number 5. Yes.
In subsection 5. Okay? It's.
So moved.
And I'll second.
It's been, okay. Gonna have it moved by Mr. Traber and second by Mr. Sokolovich to keep the original language in 9280 subsection 5 only. Any further discussion? All in favor of keeping the original language for 9280 subsection 5?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We are still on new business item 9280 committees. And now that we transitioned, I want to bring up for 1D. I don't necessarily think we need to bring that up. There's a whole chapter in Robert's Rules of Order for when the chair is acting out of line, for him or her, that particular person, to be removed to facilitate a meeting, as well as trial procedures to be conducted by the board if a board member has been unfairly removed by it. I will say I experienced firsthand what happens as a freshman board member that does not know all the rules. But in this position, with time in reading the rules, I find this a bit redundant. And so I will open up the floor now to any comments. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes, the redundancy has been discussed, but there is no mechanism. Right now, without this section, the chair has sole discretion and there's no recourse whatsoever, either under Robert's rules or not, to put that person back on that committee or to keep them on that committee.
Yes, it is. Chapter 21, the last one of the latest edition.
But, okay, does Robert's rules...
But I'm not going to entertain a debate and back and forth.
Well,
this is discussion for the entire
our
board.
bylaws supersede Robert's Rules of Order. And
You're out of order, Mr. Sokolovic. Please wait.
I had the floor, did I not?
Wait. I'm not going to entertain an argument right now. I've expressed my opinion, and I want to go around and hear the rest of the board members, because as I stated, it is addressed in the newest edition of Robert's Rules what to do when a chair is rogue, or how the trial procedures go for a board to run effectively and do our jobs.
I'd like a point of information which may actually, may under Robert's Rules interrupt the speaker. Robert's Rules states unless bylaws supersede. Our bylaws state that the chairperson has sole discretion in appointing committee members. That chairperson will not be in violation of Robert's Rules for simply removing a person from their committee assignments. That person will be in compliance with Robert's Rules.
Where is that in terms of this, and why is it not cross-referenced in this area then?
Because it's a totally new policy and we haven't gotten up to disciplining the chair yet. There's no, unless you want to delineate each and every reason we could discipline the chair or remove the chair, we would have to add that chair is.
Okay, now we'll open up the floor to the board members for any questions or comments pertaining to this particular item 1D. Mr. Macron.
I have no comment.
Mr. Lombard.
Yes, I would appreciate an explanation of what is stated to see if the mechanism that's stated in Robert's Rules is a mirror to this, and see if this is redundant or if this is something different.
Thank you. Mr. Traber?
Yes, I have two questions, I guess. One is the shall be approved by the members affected. That would be the member or more than one member that was removed or changed or altered. So that's not necessarily members. It may be one person. I was confused by that language. So it should be a parenthetical S because it may not be more than one member, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I agree with what you're pointing out, but effective members, I'm not sure if any change on the committee, that's going to impact the board because someone's going to get swapped out for someone else. And that affects the workload. It could impact.
Well, when it says there shall be approved by the members affected, I wasn't quite clear what that meant. So I was trying to clarify what that meant.
It's not clear because this is proposed language, so it's the first time coming up.
And then the second question that I had was, there was a reference a moment ago to the chair's unilateral authority to appoint. But if I recall the debate at that one committee meeting, it's not clear, is it, that the chair has the unilateral right to unappoint, if you will?
What I will comment on that is that's why I said, where's the cross-reference to the authority of the chair? Because then if it's saying what it's being stated now, I want a cross-reference as to what is the power of the chair and look at it at the same time. And that's not before us right now. Ms. Casimir? Wait, did I just pronounce your name wrong? Sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry.
No, nothing right now. Thank you.
Mr. Benahan?
No comment, no question this moment. I'm just listening what's going on. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Brown? Okay. For this particular, it's a first read. I think what should be done is just a suggestion, is a cross-reference with the actual policy and authority of the chair. And maybe we can just share around the latest edition of Robert's Rules, not in violation of any copyright policy, so that way we can look at the suggestion from Mr. Lombard with whether this is going to be a repetitive process. I believe Ms. Brown brought up that we were going to do training, so maybe appropriate training before this change can be helpful or garner more support for it. Like I said, I've seen it firsthand, so I understand your reason for bringing this forward. I just think more time is necessary for clarification. And that's for item 1D. So is there any more discussion regarding 1D? Is there any discussion regarding change 2 to 9280?
So I think what you're looking for here is a motion to recommit, which I won't make because I disagree.
I move to recommit.
So there's a motion to recommit. Which one? Are we recommitting what, 1D or the remainder of the policy?
It's got to be the whole policy. We can't pass the first reading of portions.
Okay. So
I move to recommit the entire policy to committee.
280.
Can you repeat it again, Mr.
92. I move to recommit the proposed policy change to 9280 to committee, the entire proposed policy change.
Any second? So the motion was moved by Mr. Traber, second by Ms. Casimir. I apologize. Any discussion or debate regarding recommitting this back to committee? Seeing none, we're going to now vote to recommit 9280 in its entirety back to committee.
Roll call, please.
Okay? Mr. Lombard's not here. Oh.
Okay, yes, sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Traber,
Yes.
Ms. Baptiste Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Sokolovic,
No.
Mr. Benahan,
Pass.
Ms. Casimir? I'm sorry, did you say it again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Your microphone's not picking you up. Ms. Brown?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Brown's left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macaron?
Yes.
Mr. Lombard, yes.
Okay, the motion to recommit back to committee carries.
Pass.
Oh, so sorry, you're absolutely right. It's point of order, Ms. Baptiste Perez. Mr. Benahan?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries to send it back to committee 9280. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding library media renewal project. Dr. Jenkins, I believe you're presenting this.
Good evening. This evening, I'll be presenting Phase 1 of the library media renewal. And this evening, I will be co-presenting with Lisette Vage. Lisette Vage, she is currently the library media specialist at Park City Magnet School and has assisted me tremendously in gathering feedback from the other library media specialists to inform decision-making and recommendations. The agenda for this evening is to review the goals of the library media centers within schools, provide you with an overview of the library media purchase process, the review of materials process, to facilitate a short presentation of the Pebble Go and Pebble Go Next resource, as well as a short presentation of BrainPop resource, to give you an introduction to planning for Phase 2 of library media renewal, and finally to present the requests for approval. The American Association of School Librarians identify several goals, but the 3 goals that I'm sharing with you align with the goals of this project. We want to provide intellectual access to information through learning activities that are integrated into curriculum. And we want to help all students achieve information literacy by developing effective cognitive strategies for selecting, retrieving, analyzing, and evaluating, synthesizing, and creating and communicating information in all formats and in all content areas of the curriculum. So this goal is to support that type of thinking across all the content areas: science, social studies, math, engineering. Number 2, we want to provide resources that support learning experiences that encourage students and others to become discriminating consumers and skilled creators of information through comprehensive instruction related to the full range of communication media and technology, and to provide resources and activities that contribute to lifelong learning while accommodating a wide range of differences in teaching, learning styles, methods, interest, and capacity. So these are 3 of the goals from the American Association of School Librarians that have guided the process. So there are multiple types of literacy that relate to library media centers. For this purchase, we focused mostly on information literacy. We want our students to have the ability to recognize when information is needed, the ability to locate, analyze, and use effectively the needed information for projects, reports, research. We want our students to know how to find the information needed for any task or decision at hand, the ability to think critically about varying types of information and analyze, and whether it's the right information for the intended purpose. Our next phase will address more of the media literacy and news literacy. I'm going to introduce Lisette Vage, the media specialist at Park City Magnet. She has a vast knowledge base, especially about media resources. She has worked within our district at the high school, elementary, and middle school levels. And she's demonstrated leadership with the other media specialists to capture the needs of the schools as well as the district. We do not have a director of library media, so I was grateful that Lisette was willing to collaborate and support me in the process. Media specialists have met monthly to review different products that are listed. At this time, I'm going to give Lisette a chance to provide a more comprehensive overview of this process.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Jenkins mentioned, my name is Lisette Valle, and I am the librarian at Park City Magnet School. Part of, or one of the major pieces of this process for us has been, in regards to district-wide librarians, is to ensure that we reached out to as many of our certified librarians as we have in our district, to ensure that we have a nice base and expertise in bringing in and recognizing the resources that we need. With that said, on our team, we've had representing classical studies, Geraldine Johnson, High Horizons Multicultural, Beardsley, Harding, Madison, Reed, Waltersville, Marin, Dunbar, Barnum. We've also included the expertise of our speech and language pathologists, and also in collaborating and connecting with our IT department and our academic support instructors that they have on staff. So we wanted to make sure that we encompass all that expertise to ensure we're reaching out to everyone, and to ensure that we have recognizing our district's very diverse population, inclusive of our bilingual students, our special education department, the talented and gifted, the AP courses that students take. So we wanted to make sure that we have something for everyone. And in addition to the goals that Dr. Jenkins mentioned as part of the American Association of School Librarians, is that we want to make sure that we have equitable access. And what I explained to our team is that means that no matter what zip code I'm in, if I decide, or my grown-ups decide, that we're going to move to the west side and I'm at a different school, that library is also going to have the same resources that my old school had. And so we're making sure that across our district, we have anchor content. And as I mentioned, anchor content, meaning that regardless of your school, regardless of your zip code, you're going to have the similar information and access to resources. The additional piece of that is recognizing that we have certain special programs in certain buildings that won't be at others. And so those buildings with those special programs would be included in having additional resources in those library media centers, so that we have something for everyone. For example, we have our medically fragile students. We may have someone who's visually impaired and need high contrast print. We may have someone with mobility and so may not be able to maneuver a typical paperback book. So we would ensure to have resources. For example, we call them like chubby books or the board books that would be easy for a student to maneuver and use those resources. The other piece of it too is taking into consideration digital content. So yes, books in print, magazines in print, but also having ebooks, having digital magazine subscriptions, having databases that our students would have access to via our ClassLink. So closely collaborating with our IT department to ensure that that's integrated and our students have access through their devices, as we are a one-to-one district. I wanted to be sure to include in there, or to mention that we're also considering and looking at resources in different languages. Our district, our top 3 languages in our district, the languages spoken our Spanish, Portuguese from Brazil, and Haitian Creole. We also have numbers of Pashto, Mandarin, Chinese, Arabic, Turkish, and Farsi. So we're taking into consideration, and always with the mindset of willingness to be open and hearing, like, did I miss something? Did we miss something? And then being willing to listen and to receive that information, a different view. How do we address that, and how do we ensure that we're incorporating that so that we continue with equitable access for all of our close to 20,000 students here in our district. One of the things, or one of the resources that we're looking at to consider this digital access is Pebble Go. And so, yeah, we're just going to switch screen here. Just a quick show so that everyone sees. This is what Pebble Go looks like. And so, as I mentioned, our students would be able to have access to this via ClassLink. So it's a one sign-in through their Bridgeport Public School portals. And this is Pebble Go. Students have access to resources. And this is a sample of what we would have access to, our students would have access to. So this is just our research, whether it's animals and science, biographies, which we know, like, first, some of the resources at some of our libraries are very outdated. And so biographies is one thing that's huge in regards to us needing to ensure that we have resources that are relevant and that students want to read, kind of thing. And so here we have social studies and health. These resources for Pebble Go are also available in Spanish. There is, this is kinder through 2nd grade. We have Pebble Go Next, which goes 3rd through 5th grades. And then we have access to ebooks as well. One feature with Pebble Go is that these books would be permanently belong to our district. So it's not like they expire. They download them onto your device and then they're gone for a while. After a while, they're there. They are our devices. And so this is Pebble Go. And then in addition, we have, this is BrainPop. And one of the things that we as all the librarians that have been on our team is we want to make sure that we have anchor content. So I know that at Park City Magnet, when I talk to students about citing their sources and MLA citations, and where do you find the copyright date? What does it mean when you're looking at a magazine? How do I know that this is current information? Where do I find the date? That all this, like, anchor information that all our students should have access to. And I tell our students all the time, especially when they say to me, "Oh, Ms. Vajay, we have to cite our source again?" All the time. I'm like, yes. And I tell them all the time, I promise you that what we're learning here in elementary school and the middle school, you're going to use it when you go to high school. And if you decide to go to college, you're going to be able to use that. It's not to say that you're going to know it, like, right away, to say this is exactly how this citation goes, but it's familiar. You've had experience handling it, writing and citing your sources, and it makes you think about when you see something for the first time, not to just believe it really quick. It's like, let me just do my own research, right? It's all about having equitable access and ensuring that we have good quality sources across the district. And so one of the things with BrainPop specifically, we looked at that they have a whole unit or several units in regards to citing sources. And so this goes back to, again, as I mentioned, regardless of your zip code, if you're moving to another town of Bridgeport, you know that you have, or your librarian will have access to this, our staff will have access to this, where the students are going to be able to continue their lesson on whatever it was that was being covered. And so it doesn't dampen the fact that we're going to maybe I prefer to read, or this is one of my favorite stories that I share with my students, and maybe one of the other librarians has another favorite story. That doesn't change. Like, we still get to have that little bit and to integrate that in what we do with our story time and our teachings with our students. But this is like the anchor pieces, that this is like quality information and a source for the students. And it goes with the piece of we have video. So if we have students who are struggling readers or just emerging readers, we have the video. We have it so that these both of these sources have it so that it reads the text to the students. So again, if we have our English language learners, if we have anyone who's just learning to read, that has that additional supports built into, it's like an additional feature that's already built into this here. And so this here is Brain Pop, and it's one of the, across the board with our team, everyone really thinks that this is like an important resource for us to provide for our students here in Bridgeport.
Stop sharing.
Okay.
Lisette is going to provide an overview of our planning that we have launched for the second phase of library media renewal. We are only requesting approval for first phase resources, but I wanted to give you a glimpse of what second phase resources that may come to the board look like.
Thank you. So a part of our second phase in planning for our library media renewal is to ensure that we have student voice and student choice in what we're providing in our libraries. And one vendor that we're working with is called Bookalicious. And this content is specifically grades K-8. These are books in print. We've talked with this vendor, of course, because, for example, at Park City, we have close to 500 students, so there's a lot of hands handling the books. So we want to make sure that they are hardcover, it's a good quality. And so in addition to that piece of it, again, going back to student choice and student voices, that we've been able to create a survey, and that will be distributed district-wide. Dr. Jenkins has a selection of books that I was able to get from Bookalicious, just so that we can see the variety of books and the quality of the books. So the survey is going to be distributed to students in through grades K through 8 in all of our schools, including the Bridgeport Learning Center, those students in our RISE program and our LEAD programs. And so the idea is to, like, as I mentioned, to ensure that we have students' choice and students' voice, and that we understand and know what it is that they like to read. Like, what do you want to see on the shelves of your school library? Because what does it matter if I have a collection of 10,000 books if no one's reading them? And so we want to make sure that we have that students have a sense of ownership in their space in our school library, as, you know, being the center of the school. In regards to making the survey available, the logistics of that, it would be shared out through ClassLink, a notification, our IT department collaborating with us and pushing out that survey to the students, where they'd be able to click. Some of the questions would be like, what do you like to read? How do you feel when you get to read your favorite book? Is reading easy for you? How does that make you feel? That kind of thing. So we have that social emotional component to get a gauge of how students feel about reading and what they like to read and what they would like to have in their own school libraries. In regards to Bookalicious and curating the collections, the company has a group of literary mentors, and so they're going to ensure that our collections reflect situations and current events, because we want to make sure, as I mentioned, you know, that we have who's the most current president, what's the social thing happening in the world. And so this company is thorough in regards to ensuring that they have on their team people who will enable and be able to provide us and ensure that we have an up-to-date and current collection and resources for our students. And in addition to student choice and student voice, the librarians in our district, our school media specialists in our district, will also be able to identify specific genres, topics, and titles that we would like to have across the district in all of our school libraries. There will be a special consideration to curate collections for special situations. For example, a school that may have a specific program that is not available at one of the other school buildings. And so that's part of that piece of it. And our magazines, what we did was we created a survey, asking what would they like to have in their school libraries for magazines in print. And the intention of the survey is to collect that data to identify anchor content so that all the schools would have these specific magazines. And we're currently looking at digital access magazines as well. And that would be, so again, all the students in our district will have access to those resources. Let's see. In regards to the middle and high school, that is also we're looking and working with a company and a person that's called a jobber. And the jobber's responsibility is to connect, visit the libraries, have meetings, especially at the high school level, to ensure that the content and the resources are appropriate for our high school level, taking into consideration our magnet programs, our college readiness programs, and of course, our students in our special education programs that are at the high schools, and ensuring that we have resources at the high school, at the middle and high school level that are appropriate for our student population. And let's see. Our sub-goal in regards to the public library. The connection with our public library is so important. The resources are there for all of our residents, Bridgeport residents. And so for myself personally, at my school library, what I've done is I make it part of an assignment. And so I'll send a note to the parents to say, everybody needs to get their public library card. It's free. September is library sign-up month. And so the students, their parents take them, they get their public library card. Of course, making an exception in that maybe someone has mobility issue, can't get to the library. So those are special circumstances that I take care of and go directly with the branch manager. But in inclusive of having access to the Bridgeport Public Library and all their services that are available to our Bridgeport residents, they have access to ebooks, they have access to downloading music, all of that stuff. And then we also have the Connecticut State Library. And so I have worked with a person at the Connecticut State Library as well as our IT department, IT director. And so any one of our students can access the resources at the state library. The state library's network recognizes that they're accessing their database from a Bridgeport school. At the Connecticut State Library, if you are a Connecticut resident, you have access to all of their resources. And so part of an extension of making sure that our students have access to good resources, they can also use their public library card to access the Connecticut State Library from home, in addition to going to their local neighborhood public library and borrowing resources there or participating in the programs that are available for Bridgeport residents. And that is our planning for phase 2.
I just wanted to add on in regards to the goal of getting as many children to have a library card beyond our 5-year contracts. If you agree to the purchase, we would have access to the library for more resources. And our purchase of books may not include some of the most popular books, such as The Diary of the Wimpy Kid, so that children could have access to The Diary of the Wimpy Kid. That's very important in the lower grades. So that's one of the other reasons as well. So in addition to the Bookalicious to put books on the shelves in the K-8 schools, the focus would be for the remainder of, starting next year, looking at purchases to support media and news literacy for grades 7 through 12. We've purchased maker spaces in IT department that we haven't leveraged yet, and making sure students have knowledge of media literacy and what they publish has to be grounded in integrity, that they need to be able to analyze all forms of communication. They need to understand what is actually credible information and have that discernment. They need to know whose stories are highlighted in media and whose stories are not. Understanding certain populations may be marginalized. That's the type of literacy instruction we have to expand for our grades 7 through 12 students. So the request for approval includes Pebble Go for grades K through 2, 5-year subscription. Pebble Go for Next for grades 3 through 6, a 5-year subscription. The ebook collection and activity bundles, we would own them after the 5-year subscription once that ends. And we will receive complimentary virtual PD as needed across the subscription. In the quote that was provided to you, the subscription discounts are based on purchasing a multi-year contract, and we are prepared, as advised by our CFO, to pay in full. So there's no multi or gradual payment. In regards to Brain Pop for grades K through 8, a 5-year subscription. Brain Pop comes in Spanish and French. Pebble Go is only in English and Spanish. They provided Brain Pop. High school sites have complimentary access for the 5 years as well. They've also added in Brain Pop for English language learners, complimentary for 5 years. They did give us a 1-year subscription to science that I didn't put in. We're launching a new science program, so I don't know how much we're going to use Brain Pop for science next year. We didn't want to take away the focus from our Discovery Ed adoption, but we will have 1 year of Brain Pop science, for free. They're providing 12 on-site PD sessions per year and 5 virtual PD sessions per year. And they're offering a certification program that media specialists may want to take advantage of and become like certified brain poppers. So the request for this first phase of media renewal resources, which are primarily digital, is $1,214,182.50. And I just wanted to answer Mr. Lombard's question. He had presented back in, I believe it was February. Mr. Lombard wondered if our students participating in early college courses, dual enrollment courses with colleges or universities, every student that's in one of those classes has access to the college library database. So that is already available to students participating in ECEs and dual enrollment courses with universities. That's yes, the request is always last.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Ms. Baye. I'll open up the floor to any questions or comments, discussion from the board members for the library media project. So Mr. Benahan, his hand's probably way more than yours, Mrs. Sokovic. Yes, higher. So I'll go to Mr. Benahan, then Mrs. Sokovic.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just have some questions. I just want to know, or maybe Ms. Perrin can answer me. What are our libraries on the school? What are they doing? If they have this kind of programs, I know some library, they have this kind of, this kind of program. I was waiting for the end because everything looked nice, but at the end, that's what I want to see, and nothing is free. I see that price, and I know we sure are so many things, we had to hire things. I know, I'm not saying it's not important, but we got things behind that we know we have to hire it. And I just want to know what our libraries, our schools are doing, because I know they have some programs. I know that we have, we got few libraries in the district that open, like a new field, is open, Eastman is open. They have a lot of programs for our kids. And can you answer me that question, please?
So what the libraries or the media centers in the buildings represent is a way to support literacy for our students, specifically at the elementary level and now the extension at the high school level. So with programs like this, you'll be able to provide additional supports to students to be able to access those fundamental skills to be able to read on grade level. Also, in each of our buildings, we have media specialists that provide coverage for prep enhancement for teachers. So they do see students across the grade levels to be able to do so. Programs like the ones that Ms. Valle and Dr. Jenkins spoke about will be used during those periods as well.
Just because we are low about reading, that's what the reason we bring this program to our district?
No, it's another means to be able to support literacy, but we have media centers that are there, and we want to be able to provide up-to-date information and books and the access to be able to find literacy. So one of the things that Dr. Jenkins spoke about was that students need to be able to get library cards so that they'll have access to books. With programs like the one she spoke about today, they'll be able to access those. There'll be ones that they can download on their student devices and continuously have access without having to go into a library to do so. So it gives additional access for that. Also gives an opportunity for parents to be able to support it because they'll have access as well through that one-to-one device that students have.
And this exactly, they will be for 5-year subscription, right?
This is a 5-year subscription.
It'll be the same amount after 5 years, or it's gonna be high or low? We don't know.
Well, this is a one-time fee. Okay. So this $1.2 million will contain all of the 5-year subscription for all of the 3 programs that Dr. Jenkins spoke about.
I just want to say for the record, and I'm not gonna get offended, I know reading is very important, Dr. Jenkins and everything, but for that amount, I prefer to bring a lot more paraprofessional homeschool coordinators and people that are schooled in our teachers' needs. So I just want to say that for the record. No more comments, no more questions, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benahem. Mr. Solvik?
Yes, I got 4 questions. The funding source, is it operating budget, grants, ESSER?
ESSER.
Thank you. Next question. How many media specialists do we have in the system now?
Currently, to my knowledge, it's 19 media specialists. We have 8 schools that do not have, we have more than 8 schools. We only have 1 high school with a certified media specialist. And of the 28 elementary, we have 19, so 8 schools that do not have certified media specialists. Media specialist is a shortage area statewide.
Okay, I lied. I got 3 questions. This is my last one. Could we possibly go back to the Brain Pop Next slide?
This one?
No, I'm looking for.
Oh, the demo.
The one with the books.
The demo she was using.
Yes, there was it was the first presentation.
Oh, for the record, Ms. Brown has rejoined the meeting.
Maybe I didn't mean Pembleville. It was like 4 books on the screen. The main point being one of the books on the screen was American Indians and American Indian history, and I'm not too happy with that language there, because as we know, they're not really Indians, they're Native Americans. And I want to know if, how much this was vetted for current up-to-date language and identification of different people, because I would want to find another book about people, about, what you call them? The old Asian term, Oriental.
I can examine the Pebble Go more closely, and Pebble Go next. When listening to videos that were shared, I thought that the text was sensitive. So when they were talking about Alvin Ailey as a dancer, they mentioned that he was a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So one of my, awarenesses, and I think that we're speaking about it in cabinet, will our families be comfortable with that much advanced representation of our diverse community? Do we screen out some of these things? So, you're not, comfortable with the term American, Indian. Those are some of the things we will have to explore as a community, because when we have diversity, we have that diversity of language.
Right, to piggyback on your point, I'm not looking to screen it out. I'm just looking for more racially sensitive language around the term. I would not want to ban any books, but I do want to be sensitive to our community, because we do have quite a few Native Americans in our system, not a large majority, but unfortunately enough that might come across us and find it offensive. And I think we should be mindful of the terminology we use and the terminology the book firms are using. So,
if you want me to inquire more, I can. I wouldn't be able to go through every bit of content.
Yeah, no doubt.
I do know in regards to racial diversity, ethnic diversity, both products have it. Gender diversity, I can ask, can that tile be changed? I don't know. It's something I can inquire.
Right.
But I will say that it's something we probably could and really need to discuss more, because when I heard the video, I'm comfortable, but we have a very diverse community. So would a middle school parent want that language shared in a video? I don't know. Right, so I'm saying that there's a lot of content to vet in order to make sure we're sensitive to the needs and diversity. We even have religious diversity and religious values.
Yeah, okay, yeah, last time I'll hop on this point, but this is their sales pitch. And this is on the front page of their sales pitch, which is, I just don't know what we'll see in a deeper dive. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sokolovic. Ms. Casimir, I see your enthusiasm, so I apologize for targeting you. But
Thank
do you have any
Madam Vice President.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Mr. Sokolovic said. And this is because I love going to Native American powwows. Like, I like going to the ones upstate New York and stuff. So, and I just know for a fact that they are trying to scratch the word Indian out, and they want to be called Native people, is what we're told. But again, it's a catch-22, because I see your point, because once you start delving into these films and documentaries, they more than likely are going to be using that term. So that's it, just a comment. But just definitely please recheck, just the language, but I see the importance of it, absolutely.
Mr. Benahan?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I have a question. Where the 1,214,182.50? I'm not gonna forget that number.
Of course.
Where is the budget? Where the money's gonna come
Yes,
from?
sir. sorry. I thought I was off, my bad. I apologize, Mr. Benahan. That question was previously asked, and it was coming from ARPS or funds. Am I correct?
Yes, and I think I omitted a major piece of information from the presentation. To my knowledge, I don't think we've purchased materials for our media centers as a district since maybe 1998. The media specialists, they hold book fairs, the Scholastic book fairs, and that's, to my knowledge, how they purchase materials for their schools. We haven't purchased materials for a media specialist to fix a book. They do not have magazines unless it's a site-based decision and they have a partnership with an organization and that organization buys the magazine. In 1998, the state of Connecticut had a major funding stream of income called the Early Reading Success. And statewide, libraries purchase books. But to my knowledge, Bridgeport Public Schools hasn't done anything to this scale. And speaking to Ms. Vajay today, the American Association of Librarians recommends that we spend $15 to $20 per child annually. So that would be about $300,000 for our $20,000 population of 20,000 population of students. So we haven't spent any money on media centers in over 2 decades. So I know it's a lot of money, but every child now has a device. In addition, the digital piece is to help students to become digital consumers. I mean, just the other day, there was a photo of Donald Trump being arrested, and he wasn't. That was misinformation, but how many people know it's misinformation, and how many people know how to check that misinformation? So when we bought the devices, we actually entered a realm in which we would need to educate our children differently. So I definitely understand your concern with the amount, because I live here too, and those taxes they're real. So no matter what the decision, I just wanted to just provide that bit. I didn't want to say it to like leverage it, but I guess I just wanted you to know why we've probably allocated overall $3 million over 2 years to build up the information hub within each school. And our high schools haven't had a remake. I don't know when they did it, maybe when they did construction. It may have happened for the high schools. But I just wanted to share that it's been a long time.
So clarify, it's coming from ARP. That's why I want to know the amount of the money.
I believe Marlene breaks it down, but I do know it's ESSER funds.
Okay.
I don't know, like she'll tell me which code when I enter it, if it's approved. But it is not operating money. It's money we must spend by the end of next year.
This is the money that would be conflict with the budget, our kids and everything. I'll be fine, but it's gonna be conflict. It's gonna be issue with the money of our kids. It's gonna be a problem. So I'm saying problem issue, because we already know we need fund and we tight and many things. You know that, Dr. Jenke. But it's gonna be extra money, like you say. I know how Ms. Siegel work the numbers. I'll be fine with that. No more comments, no more questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Mr. Trabar and then Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're saying that we're not replacing anything with this since nothing's been done since 1998?
Eventually, we will be making book purchases, so that will be a replacement. The media specialist will be able to,
I don't think I was clear, so I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think you're going in a much broader
Okay.
There's not a current equivalent of this that we're now deciding, okay, it's been 5 years, we're putting in, we want to buy a new one.
No
Okay.
current equivalent.
That was all I meant. And these books that you offered up for the quality of the books obviously aren't K to 8.
Right,
But they will be equivalent, there will be similar books for the upper grades.
yes.
And given this the presence of this new media center in the schools, so there's new media resource in the schools, the lack of staff that you just mentioned in response to Mr. Sokolovic's question would suggest that it's going to be a fitful implementation. So is there some thought given to how we get it to work to its maximum without the certified media specialists in all the schools?
The classroom teacher can leverage Pebble Go to do projects. When I visit the schools, often students are engaged in projects, but they're using paper biographies that schools have purchased as an example. So the classroom teacher would be made aware of the resource and shown how to use it to support their projects in classrooms. Students in the elementary grades are always doing projects on animals. That's like one of the most popular topics around. So the teachers would be, shown how to do it if there's not a staff person available.
So, Doctor, it's just because my mind is got to shake some rust off here. We did get a new digital resource while I was teaching in the last 5 to 10 years, right?
Mayan was the digital research we had under.
I said the rust is there.
Right, Fran Rabinowitz, and we had it for 3 years.
Okay. So we don't have that anymore.
Right.
Okay, but this is similar, but maybe better. It's new. I just heard about it, so I got it.
Mayan with digital books.
Yes.
It wasn't a database for research. It didn't support.
No, I heard that part. I know we used to use other resources for that, but the access from home and the ability to pull and draw on that, yes. Thank you.
Ms. Brown?
Thank you. My question, this is a media package that we're purchasing and own this?
We will not own the package. We're renting the package for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the reason why, because Mr. Ben, whether or not we think the funds, and we put those areas, so as long as there's not longevity for a long period of time, I think that would be beneficial for people to know that. Even if you said it, I probably apologize. But I just wanted to make sure that it will be for a period of time. Yes.
Point of personal privilege. Ms. Brown, we have really bad connection. Maybe Dr. Jenkins is better than me, but I caught like every other word. Could you repeat your question again? Hopefully the connection's better.
Sorry. Can you guys?
No, you go in and out.
Okay, I'll just put in.
I'm going to assume you say chat, but okay. Okay, thank you. While Ms. Brown types her question in the chat, go around. Mr. Macron's no longer in the meeting. Okay, and then Ms. Lumbert's no longer in the meeting. I have a few questions, and then I'll see what Ms. Brown wrote, and then we'll go to Mr. Sokolovich. So I have so ownership of the materials, is that all the materials provided or materials downloaded and actually used by the schools?
With Pebble Go, we purchased about 1,500 ebooks. At the end of the contract, we will own the 1,500 ebooks. Ebooks are quite expensive. I believe we're purchasing them at $10 an ebook. They normally run about $40 an ebook. So we will own the ebooks at the end of the 5-year subscription. But Pebble Go and Pebble Go Next, that's a temporary subscription.
Thank you. This is redundant, and I don't mean to make myself sound old, but we don't need any kind of special access to get to the ebooks. It's electronically, so we would be able to pull it, whether it's cloud-based or on a server for a school. It's our 1,500 books once it's purchased.
Correct.
Okay, I felt old asking that question. Then I had a question regarding the trainings. I have written down 12 on-site trainings for the district and 5 virtual trainings for the district. Is that correct?
For Brain Pop, yes.
Brain Pop, okay. Okay, and I can't read my own handwriting right now, so that's fine. I'll yield my time to the floor. I did get Ms. Brown's question, and she just was seeking clarity that this would live, same question, this would live past the ESSER fund, access to the ebooks. You just answered that.
Yes.
Okay, and then Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes, were there any other programs under consideration?
We considered Pebble Go because it is one of the lead media products. It's the #1 award-winning product for library media centers. We considered Brain Pop. So we've chosen 2 of the most leading. We did not go back to Mayan because it's normally not within our reach. It would take, Mayan would probably take the million.
And what kind of time sensitivity do we have on this purchase other than the ESSER funds?
If you wanted to, wait till I answer this question, it could.
Mr. Traber?
I'll ask this, and it may be that I just need to do some catching up. So the use of this as an ESSER fund, meaning the money that we got from the feds, have we had the discussion about putting it here versus, do we have options for putting it into other places? Is that a consideration that we already explored? And so I shouldn't revisit. I don't know if I'm being clear, but I know that we're about to try and pass a budget. And we're going to need to figure out where to get money when we find out what money we're going to get from the state and the city, and what other sources we have. So is this money that we should wait until we make the big decision on everything else, or move now? And that may not be directed just at you, Doctor. I don't know who's the right person to answer that. If that wasn't clear, I'll try and clarify it.
That I think that's an opinion-based question in terms of, or maybe I just don't necessarily completely understand. We have until next year to use the money. Are you talking about just reallocating?
No, I'm talking about we need, in doing the budget this year, we have various places to try and piece together the money we need to operate a school system. And ESSER would be one of them that I know is going to expire in a year and a half, a little over a year. Is this money that we should wait until we get to the big discussion about the whole budget? Should we make a piece decision here I guess that's what I'm just trying to understand. Why are we making a piece decision on this? Not that it's unimportant. I'm not trying to question the value of it. But given everything else, I see this as sort of isolating one thing. Let's decide to spend the money on that now versus everything else. And if I'm wrong, somebody tell me why I'm wrong. I'm happy to be told them.
So what I will say to that is there was a plan of how ESSER funds would be divvied up prior to me coming into this position. And I know there was an allocation that was made to be able to renew library and media materials to do that. But more poignant to what you were speaking of there about the operating budget and our deficit areas in that regard, there is a plan on the table to be able to support where there will be a deficit area if we don't get the appropriate funding from the city and the state accordingly. That does not impact necessarily that $1.2 million.
Do we want to hold this 1.2 million to decide whether we want to spend it there or here in somewhere else?
Well, that would be really up to what the board is, but I just ask that when we are making that decision, that we think about what Dr. Jenkins did speak about, is that there has not been an update to these materials since I was in high school. So that is an extremely long time here in the city of Bridgeport. And if we keep talking about access to education and providing supports to our students, we don't know if we're ever going to get a windfall like this again, but being able to put some resources in to be able to support that.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. I'm sorry, I'm Mr. Skalovic. How much does this, because I know what the Bridgeport Public Library offers is tremendous. And how much of this overlaps with what they offer? Are we duplicating services? Because I know you can get movies, and as you said, you rattled off a list of things, and I know my wife is an expert on all that, but we go to programs, we go to different things. And
the Brain Pop is an instructional tool to support content, to support students, as Ms. Vajay said, with citing resources. There are units on plagiarism. So Brain Pop is a tool students can consume, but it's more teacher directed. PebbleGo Next provides access to information in a contained environment. Currently, if teachers want to provide that information, they have to curate on the internet. Like, they have to try to find the safest links to give children, versus knowing that this environment is safe. Our children aren't going to click something and something else pops up. So the library doesn't provide a resource like PebbleGo. However, that's why I mentioned a sub-goal, because 5 years from now, we're not going to have it. And Ms. Vajay shared that most of the children at Park City have a library card. I know most of the children at Waltersville have a library card. How can we expand that so when we don't have this resource, children have access to those some sources, at least for reading? Because I don't know necessarily if teachers want to go combing through the library. I did it, but I don't know if they do.
I would agree with you about that. I'm more looking at the resource of books that you were talking about and the ability to access those books versus the pedagogical or the educational benefits of these programs.
Sorry, I was looking up competitors to PebbleGo based on the comment. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes. To Mr. Traber's point, I've been since the beginning of the COVID crisis, and there's certain buckets that the money is allocated for. We do not necessarily micromanage that. And one of the goals with the spending of the ESSER funds is to try to prevent the fiscal cliff. But the fiscal cliff is coming up. But this is something, even though I'm probably going to want to stall this in a minute, but this is a program that would be great to approve if it meets all the criteria, because when ESSER funds expire at the end of 2024, 25, I always get confused, this 24 fiscal school year, this will live on for 4 more years as a program, and then the hard copy, the hard copy books will still be here. And you said 1,500 ebooks as well, we will own after that. And that will live on beyond ESSER, and then I think that's quite a prudent use of funds that we wouldn't be able to find anywhere else to put that would have such an impact.
Thank you, Mr. Sokolovic. Any other questions or comments? Because you yielded the floor. This is the question going back to Ms. Valle's presentation. And it was mentioned that materials were surveyed, like the magazines. Were they surveyed by all students, a sample set of students, or is it built in particular, like the children at Park City really likes ABC magazine, where another school like EFG?
The media specialist did the survey of magazines because I asked that we have anchor text that would be the same across schools. With Bookalicious, we pushed out a survey to students. We do not have that information because the survey size, the sample size is small. It's either 24 or 2,800, and we have 14,000 students. So that's why Bookalicious was pushed to phase 2, because we don't want to buy books without capturing a larger number of students in their voice.
Thank you. Now we are back at quorum. Mr. Sokolovic?
So seeing as this is not an immediate purchase, and there's some, at least on my part, big concerns about the language, is this just one quick question. Is this the one we have access to the link to explore? So I'd like to make a motion to postpone this while we get the additional information about the American Indian, and see if any of this is repeating, since it's not a time-sensitive issue, and I think it'd be prudent just to make sure it's not a prevalent thing throughout the program.
A motion's been introduced to postpone the renewal of the library media project, and it's been it's been introduced by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Benahan. I'll open up the floor for further debate and discussion regarding the motion to postpone. I have a question, Dr. Jenkins. If we were to purchase it now, or if it's postponed from being purchased at this moment, I guess, tell me what the timeline is. Had we approved it tonight, what would have been the steps, or what could be the steps for it? It's approved, it goes to CFO, the CFO puts in the numbers for ARP ESSER, confirms it's from ARP ESSER, and then it would be available the start of the next school year, or is it available start of summer? I guess kind of like the timeline for implementation is so it's ready. Because if I want to know the consequence of if we postpone it or push it down to committee and then it's passed in September, how we would actually introduce a launch mid-school year of a new project.
So Mrs. Siegel would prefer to purchase before April 6th. That's the deadline for entry. However, when Mr. Sokolovic shared his, thinking around the term Indian, I know that, we could ask, of course, because he's a board member, for a different date. So but that is the CFO's preference, because closing down the district takes a long time, she says.
Okay, Mr. Traber?
I guess piggybacking on your question, I guess I agree that that's not a desirable goal to start to buy in the fall. I don't think anybody's suggesting that. So what's the deadline? Do we want to implement it for the summer, which it has its benefits in terms of training the staff and getting ready for the following year? There's nothing teachers say worse than finding out in the last week in August, oh, we have this new program for you to think about with regard to running your classroom this year. So it would be preferable to have it sort of some lead time built into that. So what would be the deadline for us to get it all ready if this is the way we're going to go? When do we have to make a decision by?
I'm going back to the CFO's recommendation, but Ms. Perrin can.
I'll interject. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. So we probably will need to know probably within the next 4 weeks or so in which direction, because we're planning a teacher leader institute at the end of June as we prepare for the next school year, as well as we want to be able to roll out any new initiatives or programs that we have during that time.
Mr. Sokolovic.
So just for clarity, I mean, you kept mentioning Ms. Siegel. Let's just get clarity. Postponing this till the next regular board meeting will have no impact on the educational implementation of this program. Thank you.
Sorry, cut myself off. Okay, so a motion. Mr. Benham.
When I said I agreed to postpone it, because I would like to listen more information, and I feel Madam Vice Chair, they're supposed to come bring this in one of our committee, and
it was introduced in my committee already.
Yeah, but I feel it's getting more details, more information. So that's what the reason I said, to postpone it. Thank you.
It would come back to the full board. I don't think there needs to be additional vetting for committee. And as mentioned during committee reports, teaching and learning is going to meet at the end of April. And Ms. Siegel will probably have a heart attack. No, just kidding. And Ms. Casimir?
Just one quick, unrelated but related question. Have you seen a trend in increase in kids that are using ebooks and audiobooks? I was just thinking of the different learning styles. Have you seen a upward trend with them using more electronic ways of reading, or is it about steady over the last, say the last 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, due to the pandemic, our students have gotten better at reading online. We assess our students on our statewide exam online, so they must have skill with reading digital and printed text. A child learning to read in the elementary grades, it's better for them to have printed text when learning to read. Pebble Go reads to the child, so they're listening to content almost like they would on their phone. I mean, students consume a lot of content on their phone. So it's really tapping into our students being digital natives. So we may not be as comfortable, but they're more comfortable getting information through listening and viewing than, at least my generation.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, do you have any questions?
No comments on this one.
Okay, thank you. So again, there's a motion to postpone this to the next regular board meeting. It was second by Mr. Benahan. Seeing that there's no more discussion, we can now vote on the main motion to postpone action regarding the library media renewal project. All in favor of postponing until the next regular board meeting?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. This item will be revisited at the next regular board meeting. The next new item for new business on the agenda, oh man, Mr. Garcia, this is from my committee, Teaching and Learning, is discussion and possible approval of FMX software for building operations facilities. Is Mr. Garcia still there?
I'm here.
Thank you for sticking along, Mr. Garcia.
I'm getting used to being at the end of the agenda.
Oh, man. I'll just quickly say this was presented in Teaching and Learning. No, I lie. Facilities, health and safety and facilities. I think it's an efficient process for how our facilities are being used, and Mr. Garcia will give additional information on it.
So pretty much what we're looking for, it's going to be a change to the policy. The current policy is a manual policy. When someone needs to request renting our facilities, it's a manual process. What we're looking to do is change that policy to give us the ability to bring in some software so folks can do everything online. Currently, it's a very cumbersome and costly process as you've got to engage several folks. We'd like to bring a software in so folks can do the applications online. They can pay online. They can see what facilities are available. If there's any needs attached to the rental of that space, they can make those requests within the system. So everything is managed within the system, and then it's just approvals from a couple of us as opposed to engaging several folks. We see it as a way to streamline the rentals and take the ambiguity out of folks that want waivers and other things. They have to upload all of their documentation and make sure that their payments and everything are done in a timely fashion. So like that, we're not chasing folks for payment or for insurance riders and things like that. So pretty much it's a change to the current policy that's manual to a software-based online process. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Opening up the floor to board members. Any questions regarding the FMX software for building operations and facilities?
I have a question.
Mr. Traber?
Just to make sure I understood, I know I'm behind the curve on this. This is just to deal with rental of our facilities?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a comment. I think actually having a software to do this would bring us into the 21st century. Mr. Garcia, during the committee level, showed the tedious process, and when we have multiple outside organizations trying to use our facilities, a platform already there that shows clearly whether payment, insurance, all the information necessary is there, whether a venue is there. It just makes sense. And Mr. Garcia, I believe this was really affordable, right? How much was it?
It was under $10,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, I was at this meeting. I was very impressed with the low price of the software, and I did want a demonstration of the software by inputting all the lighthouse uses of our building and finding the true cost that we would be recouping if there were private companies using it, because as we know, we only get $75,000 per year from Lighthouse, and I'm sure they exceed that use and cost. So I'll probably be asking for you to come before finance and show us those numbers.
We have those, so when you're ready, we can share that with you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Sounds like there's already people ready and willing to use the data from the software for their committees. Are there any more questions, comments? This is for the discussion item. Right now, there's no main motion on the table unless someone wants to make a motion.
Motion to approve the purchase of FMX software for building operations and facilities.
Move.
Second?
Second. Sorry, second.
Okay, so the motion to approve the FMX software for building operations facilities has been moved by Mr. Sokolovic, second by Mr. Benahan. Is there any further debate or commentary regarding the motion on the floor right now? Mr. Traber?
Just to make sure I understand. So, for instance, Lighthouse will or won't use this.
Everyone's going to go through the system because in order for us to have an accurate inventory of what's being used, we have to input everything. So when someone looks to request a permit, whether it's external or internal, it's going to run through the system. And like that, we have a clear picture of exactly what's going on in our facilities.
And so that would also apply to internal meetings like the union?
So there's two categories of things when it comes to usage of the buildings. There's the permit process, which is the larger stuff that's going on. The day-to-day stuff that happens within a building is the activity report. So that's school-based. So if it's a school-based function, it won't fall within the permit process. Everything else does.
No, I'm not talking about a school-based function. I'm talking about like a union delegate meeting.
Yes, that
Central,
will
which
fall
is
within the permit process.
okay.
Okay. Okay, we still have quorum. Any further questions, comments? All right, seeing that there's none, we will vote now on the approval of FMX software for building operations facilities. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have one abstention. And the motion carries. FMX software for building operations facilities was passed. Thank you, Mr. Garcia,
Thank you, everyone.
for sticking along with us. All right, and now we're up to the last item for new business on the agenda. It's discussion on the old Warren Harding High School building site. Not sure the referral to the board to introduce it by a particular board member, but this is just discussion. So I will address board members who raise their hands. We'll go around.
I guess I'll start since my name is probably one or two remaining on the board that's actually on the new Harding building. I was here not through the whole process, but through the probably like 6 months prior, 6 to 8 months prior to the ribbon cutting. And when this is all about the video. This conversation would not be happening but for the video that we've had. And the board, for its part, we've got to do better. And we've got to definitely create a policy to prevent this from happening ever again. Because when I saw glass beakers, microscopes, preserved animals, books, history artifacts of this school, my stomach started sinking. I was raised poor and taught to never leave $1 on the table. These are the dollars that we failed to recoup as a board, as a body, that we need to have a policy that does not exist. I've heard this has happened at other schools when we handed them over to the city. There's no exit plan. The policies that we currently have are insufficient. So I like the listening public to know that we are going to learn from these mistakes, and we are going to build a policy that prevents it from happening when we move into the new BASIC. And that's going to be the focus of my committee for quite a while, because the policy doesn't exist. And in my search, there's no real policy that totally fits it. So this is going to be new grounds. I'm going to bring it to committee, and I'm going to have various people come before the committee, and it might have to end up being a multi-committee and a joint between the city and us, because there's some city charter rules that we got to follow, and there's some things, but that can never be allowed to happen again.
Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I agree with what Mr. Judge Sokolovic said, and I was in shock. Made me sad, made me angry at the same time what I see. And as I said in my board members, that when I was the first year being the board member, I asked the last former superintendent what we're gonna do, and he just say like, there's nothing they can do. The city will take care when it was not true. It was so many things there that I know in the beginning when this happened, when they happened, opened the new Harding High School, that another school that can use it, another community that can use it, let's say Habitat, they can use it for a community. It's a lot of antique stuff there that the Bridgeport School, they will take it to get fund, money for Bridgeport School. But it's a shame, but I don't like when people stop pointing and say, board education, board education, board education, board education. I don't agree with that, because when they say board education, that's including my name in each one of us. If people didn't know exactly what happened, they need to investigate first and find out and talk first before they put it outside in social media. I'm not a person on social media, but when they attack board education on social media, trust me that I will attack back, because people have to ask first before they attack us. And it's a shame that I was not board member at that time, but it's sad to see that, when I know in the beginning, when I asked for my first year, that situation will be fit. But let's get forward. Let's, to see what we can do and let the other community, like I know, we're not here to judge nobody, but we're here to fix the situation and problems. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. No more comments.
Thank you, Mr. Benahan. Mr. Traver?
Yeah, as a resident of the neighborhood, I saw the video. It's disgusting. I mean, the entire thing was the fact that they got in and got to go around, the fact that people were in there cutting out metal and scavenging the building, why it's not sealed. It's just a plethora of questions that need to be answered. So I would defer to you all as to the right way for us to proceed. And I agree with you, Mr. Benahan, about the finger pointing. It started right away. And my first reaction as a resident was, I thought the city took it over. Isn't it their responsibility to make sure that nobody's inside that building and that there's, now the question about why stuff was left, that's a different thing. And that's a valid thing to explore, especially when you saw if I recall, the artwork up on the walls in the old library. And I think of Monger's Market and the people spending lots of money down there on some of that old hardware and, woodwork and windows. So I think it is valid.
Madam Vice Chair.
Wait, I want to go around and give all board members opportunity to speak or comment. Ms. Casimir? No comment. Ms. Brown?
I'm a little concerned about my service, so I put my comment in the box. I'm not sure, is it feeding back?
Your service is on now too.
Is it fine?
Sound good.
We can listen to you now.
Yeah. Okay, wasn't sure. So I definitely agree with what Mrs. Okolovic was saying concerning about policy being in place for the transition of a school. I also believe that there has to be a conversation with the city and our board on what that looks like so that this doesn't happen again. I'm also very concerned for any parents or students that, have rich history within it, whether that's artwork, whether that's staff member information, whatever that may be, that we can keep in-house, because I was a student at Harding High School. There was a lot of basketball trophies, things that the school preserved from when I was there. So just imagine how much more years later that there's information in there that could be preserved or history related to the building. So I definitely would hope that as we build policy or, as we build around this topic, that we'll be able to make sure that we are doing our part as a Board of Education and that we aren't pointing hands at anyone, but making sure that we make sure our house is in order when it comes to, moving out of a building and not leaving it to, where Harding currently is. So I definitely appreciate that opportunity, but I'm also grateful for those on the board who asked for this particular conversation, because I do think we deserve to know where the board stands on this and what our next moves are in any future projects.
I'll just say a comment on this, especially given that it's no longer and it hasn't been in the building site has not been in the custody of the Board of Ed in at least 3 years. Is that about right? Since 2020, if I'm recalling the facts correctly. I do agree that there needs to be a policy in terms of when transitioning a school potentially to a new site, what is done with the materials, the supplies, everything within the building before transitioning ownership back onto the city of Bridgeport. And I think that is the most important, and that's the only kind of action we can do at this time as a board, is to make sure that that mistake does not happen again and that oversight doesn't happen again. In terms of the condition of the building now, that's the city's property. It's been the city's property for a while, and RFPs have been issued by the city with walkthroughs of the site. And so I will say allegations of I don't know what was going on. Somebody from the city had to know the conditions within the building prior to the release of that video. Allegations to the board and this particular board, which the majority of us brand new up today, as of today, had no impact or insight on. It seemed a bit unjustified and uncalled for, given that there is bountiful opportunities for development throughout the city. And then Mr. Benahan.
Yes, thank you. I want to add what I said. I remember when I was at the PTSO, the former PTSO president of Bassick High School, we discussed and we talked about the antique Bassick High School hat right now to move it to the new Bassick High School. And we have proof in black and white of that. So it's something that I don't want people, they think, oh, the Bassick High School, they throw everything away. No, we're going to move a few things that I know exactly what is it. We're going to put it for the new Bassick High School so we can remember, it's nice. How come Harding High School never take the beautiful things that Harding High School have? Amazing, because I know I work in that school, they don't put in the new Harding High School. So, like you say, and you say, we have to put it in a policy to be sure that I know it guarantees not going to happen again in that school, new Bassick High School, any school as us as a board member, everyone. I just want to add that into my comment. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay. Is there any more discussions or commentaries on a building that is no longer in our possession? Seeing none, that is the last item for new business. And now there is a motion to adjourn that I would love to entertain. So moved by Albert Benahan, second by Mr. Trabar. All in favor, say aye. Aye, passes unanimously. Have a good night.